Miss Jensen clapped her hands smartly as the girls began to chatter and waited for silence before she spoke. When she did so, the children must have realized from her tone that she was in no mood to be trifled with, and both twins and Annie mumbled, "Sorry, miss," before settling back in their seats, all three wearing expressions of meek obedience which an angel might have envied. Miss Jensen cleared her throat. "I know you're excited at the thought of returning to Liverpool after so long away," she said, smiling a little. "But this conversation is getting us nowhere, and there's still work to be considered." She turned her head to glance at the clock. "I shall give you an essay to be done between now and tomorrow morning, so get out your homework books, please." For a moment she wondered wildly what subject she could choose which would be interesting enough to put the thought of returning home out of the heads of her rebellious charges. It was not an easy choice, for the class now consisted of children of various ages who'd remained behind after a good few of their classmates had returned to the city when the worst danger of bombing raids seemed to be over. The twins, Miss Jensen reflected now, were a case in point. After their mother had been killed in the May Blitz, their father, Alex Lawrence, who was sub-officer on Blue Watch at the fire station in Old Gadwell Street, had explained to both the teacher and the farmer's wife that with two 9-year-old girls on his hands, he would not be able to give his whole mind to his job, which was an essential one in wartime. Both had agreed that he was doing the right thing. In the 4 years since then, he had managed to visit them 3 times, and Miss Jensen thought that no man could have done more, for the journey was long and complicated. She had met Alex Lawrence once or twice and had liked him. He was a tall, well-built man with close-cropped light brown hair, and though not handsome, he had a craggy and attractive countenance and an easy, pleasant manner. The teacher knew that he wrote weekly, because the twins were proud of his letters and showed them around. He illustrated them with tiny pictures which he thought might amuse them, and meticulously addressed such letters to each twin by turn, though he knew, of course, that they would read every word of every missive many times over, regardless of to whom the letters were addressed. No girls, Miss Jensen was convinced, could have had a better father, which was as well, since the twins, though delightful in many ways, were not the easiest of children. Now, faced with 2 rows of expectant faces, Miss Jensen thought quickly and came up with a subject she hoped would be within the capabilities of her ill-assorted class. "First, memories," she said briskly. "I want you to write an essay of at least 2 pages in your best handwriting, telling me the very first thing you can remember. That should be possible for all of you, no matter what your age, and because we shan't be here much longer, I shall dismiss the class as soon as you've had your dinner, which will give you a whole afternoon to complete the task. Any questions?" Annie's hand waved, and she jumped up and down in her seat. "Shall we do it in pencil or ink, miss?" "In pencil, of course, since that will enable you to rub out spelling mistakes or grammatical errors," Miss Jensen said, wishing she could have growled, "In blood," the way her old French teacher had answered that perpetually asked question. "Any other questions?" A hand belonging to 8-year-old Lizzie shot up. "Please, miss, I don't remember nothing before the fire, and then all I remember is this great big tall fella with a shiny hat on his head carrying me down a ladder. But that weren't me first memory, 'cause I were quite big by then. But do remember a single thing afore that." "And that is your first memory?" Miss Jensen was beginning, when Gillian interrupted. "I bet that were me dad, the fellow with the shiny helmet," she said importantly. Miss Jensen opened her mouth to tell her pupil to speak properly, the way she'd been taught, then shut it again. In normal circumstances, the twins spoke with very little accent, but now, thinking about going home to Liverpool, they seemed to drop into the dialect they'd scarcely used for the past 6 years. "He saved 1,000 kids, my dad." "Not 1,000, Joy cut in, looking reproachfully at her sister. "There ain't 1,000 kids left in Liverpool because of the evacuation." She twisted round to face the younger girl.